As you sit back and reflect on this gripping story, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop a comment below and share your location. It's always amazing to see how far these stories reach. And if you enjoyed today's emotional roller coaster, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on, because tomorrow, another powerful and unforgettable story awaits. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. I'll see you again soon, same place, same channel, for a tale you'll never forget. She said it was just a work trip. But he knew the ugly truth. James sat quietly on the worn leather couch, the gentle hum of the ceiling fan barely audible above his racing thoughts. At 35, he always believed himself to be perceptive, confident in the strength of his marriage to Emily, his wife of nearly a decade. But lately, something felt off, a subtle shift that nagged at the back of his mind, refusing to fade away. Emily, 32, had always been open and affectionate. Her laughter filled their modest home on Elm Street, and her eyes sparkled every time they spoke of future plans, a new house, perhaps, or maybe even starting a family. But recently, those conversations had become rare, replaced instead by hurried, half-hearted exchanges, her eyes now distant and preoccupied. The first time James truly felt unease was on a chilly Friday evening. They were watching their favorite movie, something they'd done countless times before, curled up together beneath a soft blanket. But tonight felt different. Emily sat at the far end of the sofa, absorbed not in the film, but in her phone, her thumb swiftly tapping the screen, occasionally pausing as a slight smile curved her lips. "Everything okay?" James asked softly, attempting to keep the worry from his voice. Emily looked up quickly, surprise flickering briefly in her eyes. "Oh, just work stuff," she replied casually, setting the phone face down on the table with deliberate care. "Sorry, it's been crazy at the office lately." James nodded slowly, wanting to believe her, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The next few weeks only served to water that seed. Emily began staying late at work, claiming looming deadlines and endless meetings. Each evening, James prepared dinner, placing it gently into the refrigerator after realizing she wouldn't be home on time. Then came the late-night calls, whispers exchanged behind closed doors, her voice barely audible but clearly tense. James never confronted her directly, hoping perhaps he was imagining things. But it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the gnawing suspicion that settled like a cold weight in his stomach. The final confirmation of his fears came on a sunny Saturday morning. His friend Kevin casually mentioned seeing Emily at a party downtown the previous weekend. James's heart skipped a beat, confusion quickly turning to alarm. Emily had explicitly told him she spent that night working at the office. "You must be mistaken," James tried to dismiss, but Kevin was certain. "No, it was definitely Emily," Kevin insisted, his voice gentle yet firm. "I'm sorry, man." James felt his world tilt slightly off balance. He replayed every recent moment, analyzing Emily's behaviors and actions, realizing each suspicious glance, every distant conversation, fit into this troubling puzzle. Sitting alone now in their living room, he looked at the pictures on the wall, memories captured in smiling faces and joyful embraces. He wondered when the joy had faded, replaced by secrets and subtle deceit. Determination filled him as he realized he couldn't ignore the signs any longer. He needed answers, and he needed them soon. The truth, no matter how painful, was something he deserved. James couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that now lived permanently in his gut, whispering doubts that grew louder with each passing day. Kevin's revelation had ignited an anxious turmoil inside him, but still, James desperately clung to the fragile hope that it had all been a mistake. He kept reminding himself of Emily's laughter, her touch, their shared memories, surely, they meant something. But on a stormy Tuesday evening, everything changed. Emily had returned home late again, offering a quick peck on James's cheek before heading straight upstairs. Her distant demeanor had become painfully routine, yet tonight James felt compelled to break the uneasy silence that had settled over their home. While Emily showered, James stood alone in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. His eyes drifted to her phone, carelessly tossed onto the countertop, illuminated by an incoming notification. A heavy sense of dread filled his chest as curiosity and fear battled inside him. Taking a deep breath, James picked up the device, feeling an uncomfortable guilt at invading her privacy. The screen lit up again, revealing a series of explicit texts from an unknown number. His stomach churned violently as he read through each vulgar, descriptive message. There was no mistaking it. Emily had attended a party she claimed never happened, and she had been involved with multiple men. The realization was devastating, slicing through him like a blade. James placed the phone back carefully, feeling dazed and hollow, the room spinning around him. His hands trembled uncontrollably, his heart hammering painfully against his chest. Footsteps echoed above him, pulling James back into reality. Emily would soon reappear, smiling that same strained smile, unaware that her secret had just unraveled before him. As Emily walked into the kitchen moments later, she smiled at him, a smile that once filled him with warmth, now felt painfully deceptive. James struggled to keep his composure, his voice barely steady as he asked softly, "How was work tonight?" "Busy, as always," Emily replied effortlessly, pouring herself a cup of coffee, unaware of his discovery. She leaned casually against the counter, sipping quietly. James watched her carefully, noticing for the first time the subtle hints of deception he'd overlooked before, the quick glance away, the nervous tapping of her fingers on the mug. His thoughts raced uncontrollably, the room filled with a heavy, oppressive silence. He wanted to confront her, demand explanations, scream his anger and betrayal. But something stopped him, a quiet determination taking root. The pain was raw, and the betrayal deep, but James knew he needed undeniable proof before moving forward. His heart screamed in agony, but his mind settled into a cold clarity. James nodded slowly, swallowing hard, managing a faint smile. "Glad you're home," he whispered softly, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. Emily smiled again, relaxed, unaware of the storm building silently within him. That night, as he lay wide awake beside Emily, pretending to sleep, James knew life would never be the same. The discovery had shattered his world, leaving him to silently pick up the broken pieces. But he vowed that he would confront the truth, no matter how painful, no matter the cost. Days turned into weeks, but the sting of betrayal never faded. James felt like a ghost haunting his own home, every conversation and shared meal a carefully choreographed act of normalcy. Emily, blissfully unaware, continued her charade, unknowingly fueling James's quiet resolve. He needed concrete evidence, something undeniable, something that would unravel her web of deceit once and for all. One sleepless night, as the clock ticked mercilessly, James remembered the private detective whose number he'd kept hidden away after a prior suspicion years ago. It had felt unnecessary back then, but now, it seemed his only lifeline. With trembling fingers, he dialed the detective's number, feeling an odd mix of shame and determination. The detective, a man named Tom Reynolds, listened carefully as James explained his painful suspicion, offering no judgment, just calm assurance. James provided all the details he had: locations, dates, Emily's late nights, the explicit text messages. Tom promised discretion and swift action, understanding the urgency in James's voice. As days passed, James found himself trapped between hope and dread. Each phone call or notification sent waves of anxiety through his heart. He knew what Tom's findings might confirm, yet part of him desperately hoped it would all be a horrible misunderstanding. Exactly 1 week later, the call finally came. James's heart pounded as he answered, gripping the phone tightly as Tom's calm, steady voice filled his ear. "I have the results you asked for," Tom said, his voice sympathetic but firm. They arranged a meeting immediately. James's anxiety reached a fever pitch. At a quiet cafe on the edge of town, Tom handed James a large envelope. "Everything's in there," he said gently, a note of regret in his voice. James hesitated before opening the envelope, feeling the weight of what he was about to discover. But there was no turning back now. With a deep breath, James slid out the photographs and pages inside. His heart sank further with every image, clear, undeniable proof of Emily's infidelity. There she was, smiling happily, hand in hand with another man, entering a hotel miles from their home. There were detailed logs, explicit notes, timestamps that shattered any hope of misunderstanding. James felt nausea rising, a cold sweat breaking over his forehead. The reality he dreaded was now painfully undeniable. He stared blankly at the photos, his vision blurring as anger, hurt, and betrayal rushed through him in rapid succession. Tom watched quietly, respectfully giving James the space to process. Finally, James looked up, his face pale yet resolute. "Thank you," he murmured softly, voice strained with emotion. Tom nodded understandingly, leaving James alone to absorb the magnitude of what he'd just learned. Driving home, James felt numb, gripping the wheel tightly as his mind raced. This evidence was the key he desperately sought, confirmation that tore his heart into pieces yet oddly empowered him. As painful as it was, clarity brought a strange comfort. He knew now exactly what he had to do next. Pulling into the driveway, he took a long, shaky breath, steeling himself for the next chapter, a confrontation, a reckoning, and perhaps, finally, justice. The revelation had shattered James's heart, leaving an icy void where warmth and trust had once thrived. Yet amidst the overwhelming pain, a quiet, steady determination began to form, growing clearer with each passing day. James knew immediate confrontation would only lead to denial and chaos. Instead, he chose a calculated, strategic path, fueled by a desire for justice rather than revenge. For weeks, James maintained his usual routines around Emily, masking his anguish behind forced smiles and casual conversations. He mastered the art of concealment, never hinting at the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior. Emily continued living obliviously, unaware that each day she moved closer toward the moment when her betrayal would be fully exposed. Privately, James took methodical steps toward reclaiming control. First, he discreetly opened a new bank account at a small, local branch across town. Gradually, he transferred their joint savings, a few $1,000s at a time, careful to avoid suspicion. Each deposit brought him closer to financial independence and stability, offering a sense of empowerment that momentarily dulled the ache of betrayal. Next, he arranged an appointment with a reputable divorce attorney. In a quiet, softly lit office downtown, James meticulously laid out the evidence, his voice steady despite the emotional toll. The attorney reviewed every document carefully, promising James a clear, decisive outcome. They prepared the divorce paperwork in strict secrecy, ensuring that Emily would remain unaware until the perfect moment. The final stage required precision and timing. Emily's family had planned a large gathering to celebrate her parents' anniversary, an event James knew would be ideal for his purpose. He volunteered to handle all the arrangements, coordinating travel, lodging, and even the choice of venue, a cozy yet sophisticated Italian restaurant Emily adored. James poured himself into every detail, finding a strange, painful satisfaction in crafting this elaborate scene. Emily, still blissfully unaware, excitedly discussed the upcoming event each night, her enthusiasm only fueling James's quiet resolve. The days passed swiftly, and the evening of the gathering finally arrived. James stood in their bedroom, adjusting his tie, his reflection calm yet fiercely determined. Emily entered, radiant in a sleek blue dress, her smile bright but oblivious. "Tonight's going to be wonderful," she whispered, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. James turned to face her, managing a tight smile. "Yes," he responded softly, "it will be unforgettable." Emily missed the subtle chill in his words, mistaking it for excitement. The drive to the restaurant was tense yet quiet. James replayed every step of his meticulous plan, ensuring everything was perfectly in place. As they arrived, he saw Emily's family already gathered inside, their laughter and joyful chatter visible through the restaurant's warmly lit windows. James exhaled slowly, his heart steadying with newfound strength. Tonight, the lies would crumble. Tonight, Emily would face the truth she had so casually disregarded. And tonight, James would reclaim the dignity and respect that betrayal had stolen from him. He opened the car door for Emily, offering his hand one last time, knowing that everything was about to change forever. James walked into the restaurant with Emily by his side, his pulse steady, his mind sharp. The weight of the evening pressed heavily on his chest, but it wasn't fear, it was resolve. The warm, ambient lighting of the venue contrasted sharply with the cold truth that was about to unfold. Emily greeted her family with excitement, unaware that the very fabric of her world was moments away from unraveling. Dinner began as expected, laughter, conversation, toasts to her parents' long and happy marriage. James played along, engaging in small talk, sipping his wine, waiting for the right moment. The anticipation coiled inside him like a spring, wound so tightly it was almost suffocating. Then, as plates were cleared and the conversation lulled, James stood up, taking a deep breath. It was time. "Thank you all for coming tonight," James began, his voice calm yet commanding. He turned toward Emily, who smiled at him, completely oblivious. "There's something important I need to share, something that concerns my wife." A hush fell over the table. Emily's brow furrowed slightly, her smile faltering as confusion flickered across her face. James reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, neatly sealed envelope. He held it up for a moment before setting it on the table in front of him. "Inside this envelope is undeniable proof of Emily's infidelity," he said, his voice unwavering. "Photos, messages, locations. Everything." The room seemed to contract, the air thick with tension. Emily's eyes widened, her body stiffening as panic flashed across her face. "James, what are you doing?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. James didn't flinch. "I'm telling the truth," he replied simply. "The truth you've been hiding for months. The truth I uncovered piece by piece. And tonight, your family deserves to hear it, just as I did." Emily's parents exchanged bewildered glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to horror as realization dawned. James reached for the second envelope he had prepared, the one containing printed copies of the detective's findings. He slid it across the table toward Emily's father. "I wish I didn't have to do this here," James admitted, his voice tinged with sadness, "but I think you all deserve to know the person sitting at this table, the person I thought I married." Emily's face had drained of color, her hands trembling as she tried to form words, but nothing came. Her family looked at her, shock and disappointment etched into their faces. Her father, after flipping through the damning contents of the envelope, set it down with a slow, deliberate shake of his head. James inhaled deeply, turning his gaze back to Emily. "I want a divorce. Everything is already in motion. And from this moment on, you are no longer my wife." The silence was deafening. Emily's mother covered her mouth in disbelief, while her brother simply looked away, unable to meet her eyes. James pushed back his chair and stood tall, his heart pounding but his soul lighter than it had been in weeks. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Emily to face the wreckage of her own making. As you've just witnessed, the truth has a way of coming to light, sometimes in the most dramatic and unexpected ways. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What would you have done in James's situation? Would you have confronted Emily immediately, or would you have taken the same calculated approach to expose the betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, where are you watching from? It's always incredible to see how stories like these resonate with people from different parts of the world. Drop your city or country in the comments so we can see how far the story has traveled. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We have more gripping, real-life inspired stories coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss the next one. Turn on notifications so you'll be the first to hear tomorrow's jaw-dropping tale. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to read your thoughts below. See you in the next story.